Welcome, Otto.
Thank you, Bill. Okay. What I want to accomplish today is try and explain to those people that have known me for all these years why I continue to serve in a mutual aid capacity in Alfred, and what my connection is to this other place, the elsewhere that I'll be talking about mostly as Hamilton. That is where I am an official member, and they keep me on their insurance rolls, which is the important number. They pay for my physicals and things like that, saving Alfred the expense, and all of that is very good. And I want to explain that, then I want to do a completely open, unbridled pitch for people to join the fire service. Okay, this is just a recruiting pitch, and it doesn't mean that you need to join, but everyone you know needs to join, and then we'll be in good shape. Okay, so if you want to download all the slides, they should be available at that site, at least they were this morning, as a PDF file. Okay, moving on. So first of all, if we go back to when I joined the fire service, it was 1979, and see if this works. Oh, doesn't matter. I know this should work. Yes, okay. This is actually a couple of years later. Okay, Otto was born in 81. This is the equipment we had at the time that I came to Alfred. I came here in 82. And what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about how things were in 82, how they are now, some of the changes that are obvious and everybody knows about, and some of the changes that are less obvious, a little more subtle, and that concerned me, to be perfectly honest, and so I get this opportunity to give my pitch. When he was a little bit younger, he was 9 months old, and my daughter was 3 years old, and at 5:30 in the morning on a March day, the pager went off. I was at that time active but not gung-ho, okay? You know, the gung-ho types sleep with their pager on so that it's always babbling off in the background, and subconsciously they listen for the calls that have the nearby fire departments named. And the nearby fire department for us, which was about as far away as Almond, is Earlville. It's really spelled Earlville, but other than Almond, they put the L in that they took out of Earlville, so that's how we get it all fit. Okay. In any event, Earlville had a fire, and it was March. They'd had a freezing rainstorm during the night. They went to the fire station, and the doors were frozen shut. It happens. Immediate mutual aid call to Hamilton. The gung-ho types had been listening to this and knew Earlville couldn't get their doors open and were already on their way to the station. I wasn't that gung-ho, but I made the next truck. At that fire, we had the worst fire I've ever been to. We were using this truck, which was our second attack truck. The first truck was being maintained. This would have been our first in, and there's our rescue truck. It's an old bread truck, yep. A lot of us in the 80s drove around in old bread trucks. That was converted to a rescue truck, and this was our first initial attack. That was our bread truck, and we probably responded with a ladder. I don't honestly remember. I do remember the fire. I've been to some fatal fires since, but never with kids. And to have the dispatcher say to you over that pager that kids are trapped, the parents of the kids had seen them in the windows trying to get out, and they were unable to get out. It was generally figured out that a wood stove caused the thing, and as you can ask Sandra, I will not let her use the beautiful, very high-tech, wonderful wood stove we have in the house because I'm just terrified of them. I really think that people don't respect how dangerous they are, and there were also no smoke detectors. So these kids didn't make it. This was 1982. In those days, we didn't have post-incident stress debriefings, and in fact, it wouldn't have worked anyway. That morning we got back, we were putting our equipment back. We had 2 of our trucks back in service, which was enough to respond to the next fire at 11:30 in the morning. Okay? This, had I not been at the Curtis fire earlier that day, this would have been the worst fire I'd been to. This is what was left of a house, that, a chimney, and a refrigerator. And it's very stark to get on the scene and see a chimney, a refrigerator, and smoking rubble like this. The parents, no one was in the house here. The parents lost everything. And like I said, I had a couple small ones at home. They had no photographs, no mementos, no clothes, nothing from their kids who had grown up. I don't know if it tells you how old they are. I came home from that. This was a rough day. And I came back and I said, we will make duplicate copies of all of our photos and we will send them to relatives everywhere. And we then did, because I just didn't want to be in this bind. The parents were quite distraught by all of this. Okay, so that sort of set me up. Recently, just before this, I had been what they call euphemistically the recipient of a negative tenure decision, yes, which meant that I was looking for a job. And I found one here at Alfred, or actually I found an interview here at Alfred. Mike Webb was the chair of the physics and astronomy division. And the first question I asked him at the interview, and he was just the right guy to ask, I said, do you have a volunteer fire department? And that was, Mike Webb was very active in the fire department, and he said, yes, we do, and we're always interested in new members. And so I came and was hired, and then when we had that university breakfast, okay, I went to the university breakfast, and this guy comes across from all those tables and says, hi, Otto, reaches out to shake my hand, and, you know, I know that I know this guy, but who the heck is he? Well, it was Harry Reid. Harry Reid and I used to peddle newspapers together in Syracuse, and you guys know Harry? It's Harry Reid, right? Isn't he anyway, he was in the fire department. He said, you know, you're going to join our fire department. He already heard that I was. He said, we have meetings, we have training, and he gave me the schedule and the like. And I felt quite welcomed and at home from that very first breakfast. I also got classes and, you know, that sort of stuff. So I want to look at this Hamilton Fire Department. This is 1980. They do these pictures every once in a while. So it's close to what was in there when I left or when I came here in 1980. The ones that are in red are people who are still active in 2008. Active in quotes, okay? Some of these folks are active in fundraising. Some are active just being politicians. But they're still members of the fire department. They still come to meetings. And by active, that's sort of what I mean. Okay, 1980, there were 64 of them. By 2003, we're down to 56. Okay, we lost an eighth. That kind of attrition is typical for fire departments everywhere. I intentionally avoided even asking anyone around either Alfred or Alfred Station for the numbers because I just wanted to pitch it from a neutral position. This is happening everywhere. Here's what's happened at Hamilton. Now, Hamilton is a village that has Colgate University. I had to have my negative tenure decision somewhere, and that's what gave it to me. Okay, they have a college. They have college members that are responding with the fire department just as A.E. Crandall does. Alfred Station doesn't have this as much, but A.E. Crandall, which is the name of the Alfred Fire Department, has a substantial number of students that are a very important part of how we operate. If you take Colgate's picture and remove the students, you find there's some substantial holes in what's there. The other thing that happens is the number of red pictures, which are, let's face it, the old guys. Those are people who were there in 1980 and are still there in 2003, and by now would be at least 46, because you have to be 18 to join the fire service. Yes? The number of old guys goes from something like a quarter to something like a third. Okay, so during vacations, some of the hardcore types are still young. I'll just point out that we have a couple that were here. Jason Murray and Brian Nelson were both students at the Tech, and so they were both in Alfred. I'm not sure to what extent that they served in the fire department, but I know they looked into it, and they're members here. The point I'm trying to make is that on vacations, they very much like my presence there, yes, because even though I'm one of the old guys, I'm one of the people that can fight fire. I think we have the same issue here, and I want to demonstrate that. We're going to look at a number of pictures that I've taken from Alfred sources and see what the vacation effect is. And this is what my concern is about, that we need these firefighters. Let me see if I can go backwards, okay? That's a much better group of firefighters, not to mention the fact that young college students typically are strong, brave, willing, eager, young tigers, all those things that perhaps some of us older types aren't. But in the vacation periods, we have issues. Okay, so this is what the fire department in Hamilton looks like today. They have 6 trucks. This is our rescue, which is the oldest truck here, 88. They bid it out a year ago, actually a little bit more than a year ago, to replace it. The low bid came in at $347,000 for a toolbox on wheels. Okay? There is no actual firefighting equipment on the truck. It's just a box within which we put jaws and saws and all that other stuff. They got a $20,000 rebate for the old truck. I just mentioned that because the company that bid this successfully is American LaFrance, which is now Chapter 11, so that is going to be redone. The other thing I'll mention is this is a ladder truck. That, on the cheap end, is $750,000. Yes? Colgate bought that. Okay? The fire department said, we need a ladder truck. And Colgate said, well, here's $750,000, see what you can do. But, as a payoff, it says on that sign, Hamilton Fire Department, home of Colgate University. Okay? So you know who paid for the truck. The rest of the trucks were not. They were all paid by taxpayers, so they don't have that on there. Okay. Moving along. Last February, as part of the bicentennial celebration, this group of 4 firefighters, 3 from Alfred Station and 1 from Alfred, put together a really nice presentation, which I have stolen liberally from. Okay? And they said that was okay. And so what I did is I took some of their pictures and I'm going to just add my own comments to them as we go along. The first real serious fire that I got to play in Alfred was the high-tech fire. And it started when I was still over in Hamilton, and they were nice. They continued to fight it for over a day, I think. It was a real bad fire. If you want to design a building to make it very difficult to fight fire, what you want to do is make a cold storage plant that has cork in between brick and sheetrock, because the cork burns, and it's very, very hard to get to. And as you can see, it really burned, and it was hard to get to, and not much was left when it was done. I got to play, but this is not what we consider fun. This is a surround and drown. You just spend a lot of time sitting outside, hosing down things that you know you're not going to save anything. But anyway, it was a big fire. 1988, this is one I did not get to, but I was a member, or I was responding in mutual aid by that time. This is 40 South Main. It looks like this today. This is one that was rebuilt. It had housed 8 students. It burned during a vacation. Now, as I show you these, I think I've got 11 different fires to show you. Pay attention to the color of the date. If it's red, it means that I think it was a vacation time for Alfred and for Alfred State College. Okay? When we're thinking about who's here to fight fires in vacation, we have to pay attention to when we actually have fires. And I think the correlation of fires when students aren't here is for real reasons, that no one's there to hear the smoke alarm go off while it's a small, manageable fire, and therefore it gets out of hand. That's out of hand. There's the Alfred ladder truck. This is what we were left with. The shell was there for a while. I think Doug Barber, who had been a chief at Alfred, bought the shell, and we trained on that for a few days, especially, or a few weeks actually, as a firefighting drill. But other than that, it was not particularly useful. And then he rebuilt it and sold it to someone else. But again, 8 students. Yes, this one, 1992. This is on the corner of Mill and West University. This was in the middle of the afternoon. We had quite a crowd watching, which is both good and bad. Weather wasn't particularly wonderful. It was another one that was rebuilt. I had a student in my class who wasn't a geology major, but he had lived in this house, and he was devastated for that semester. Okay, it happened in November. He really didn't finish the semester well at all because everything he had owned was gone. It burned up. And we actually had to pay, I felt it was a pain in the neck. We had a number of rekindles, which is what happens when much of the building is left standing, but there's still little heat spots that you haven't quite nailed. Nowadays, we do a much better job because Alfred Station has a thermal imaging camera, so the rekindles are less likely, but they're still a pain. That one happened during the school year. It had housed 10 students. Okay, this is another one I wasn't here for. Again, it's one during vacation. It had housed 9 students. I always heard it called the Margarita. Okay, it's also called Marguerite. I don't know. In any event, it burned. It had been occupied by these students at the time, but the smoke detector occurred, so everybody got out. Okay, the fire burned it up. I had a geology major, Erica Stapleton, who lost everything she owned in that fire, or so she thought, and used the insurance money to replace it all. And one of the things that she thought she'd lost, they found later in the basement, it was her TI-85 calculator, which still worked, and that was just one of those interesting things. So I made a deal for that, and she sold it to me cheap. Okay, again, it's a fire which is now looking like this. It's a vacant lot. All right, that house on West University was the second rebuilt house since I've been here, and I think the last rebuilt house. Every other serious house fire that's occurred is a vacant lot. That's an important thing to think about when you're thinking about the future of the village, the university, and the fire service. If we can't afford to rebuild the houses that burn down, we've got to be real careful about putting them out fast so that that doesn't happen. Okay, another picture that came off of the bicentennial slides. This was 31 South Main. That's what it looks like today. This is what it looked like that day. And I put some orange around a couple of things because Jonathan Hardy was another geology major. And this is the only fire that I have left a class for. Okay? I think the general rule is if the fire alarm goes off and you're teaching and you've got a class scheduled and they don't really need you, they won't fire the whistle off again. But if they really need you and they fire the whistle off again, you're hoped that many of you will go. That's never happened. Okay, I've been here over 25 years. That's never really happened, that they didn't have enough people responding to the fire. They had to fire us off again. But I went on this one because we were just getting ready to start lab. Jonathan Hardy was there. My pager goes off. It says, oh, 31 South Main. And he says, that's my house. How could you finish lab with somebody, So we said, okay, we'll cancel lab this afternoon, and we went and fought this fire. And he went with us. And he hauled a lot of junk back and forth out from here. Okay, this was a real tough fire to fight. There was a tin roof. There were tin ceilings. Tin is beautiful. The antique lovers think it's great to have that embossed tin on your ceiling. It's just a horrible pain to try and fight fire in because it's very difficult to rip out and get to where the fire is. And as you can tell, we lost the house. Okay. There was one other, I'm avoiding talking about EMS, emergency medical stuff, yes, although I was an EMT for 15 years. This is fire service, but I did come to class late once because I was holding, somebody went into a pole downtown, I was holding his head, and I told Nancy, who was chief at that time, call my secretary, tell her I'll be 10 minutes late for class, because we knew how long it would be. She called, my secretary went into my class, who was waiting, and said, he'll be 10 minutes late. At which point they all just packed up and ran out because they wanted, and that was, I got there and I was only 10 minutes late, but they were gone. So that class too got canceled, but only by 10 minutes. Okay. 83rd North Main. I don't have a picture of the fire. This happened on the 10th of May. This is vacation time, really. It's between the end of finals and commencement, if I remember correctly. And here's the part that burned. The beautiful platform truck that Alfred now has was in service by that time, and I can remember being up on it with Joe Shaliga ripping and tearing, and it's just really fun to have a piece of apparatus like that you can play with because it makes life easy. And we thought we did a good job, and if you read the article that came out in the Sun the next day, it seemed like it was a one apartment fire. And so we call that a good stop. And the rest of the structure stayed up for months, okay? And I thought for sure they were going to rebuild it. The issue was that the house had been in the process of being refurbished when the fire happened, and so it was blamed on construction stuff, which is fine. Nobody was in it. I don't list how many students had lived in it. I think there were many, but they weren't living there at the time. But the issue is it was a rental property. I am confident that if a person's family had grown up in that house, they might have torn down the last bit, but the rest of it would have been kept, but they didn't, so we have to put that down as a loss, although at the time I was sure we'd saved the house. And that's the fun part. That's a win. You know, you save a house, that's a win, yes. Okay. The next day, within 24 hours of that fire, we had this one, which was at 42 South Main. Andrew Bartholomew got very badly burned. The rebuilt 40 South Main building is there, and then right behind it. This is what it looks like now, and there's that 40 South Main building. Where I live and where the fire station is meant that I had to drive by this on the way to the fire hall, and there were students screaming, and there were flames just blowing out the front as I drove by, and you get an adrenaline rush. We did what we could there. There were, as you can see here, 8 other students treated for smoke inhalation and released. 3 students living there did not require treatment. This was, in Alfred, the worst student-related fire that I can remember. It was during vacation, so that we would not be able to rely on the students that are with us, unless they were seniors, okay? The people that were here were waiting for commencement. Okay, it was in that week before commencement. So we had a lot of work in those 2 days. We fought this fire okay. I mean, the fire was when a building gets really going, there's not a whole lot you can do. And in this case, the last I heard, he was married, had a job in Auburn. He's doing fine, and there you go. But this had housed 12 students. Without having facts, but talking about gossip and speculation, I have heard that the reason it wasn't rebuilt is that unless you could put 12 students back into it, it wasn't economical, and the zoning laws didn't permit that, so it didn't get rebuilt. But it's another vacant lot. By 2006, this is one that happened down in Alfred Station, right next to where Tinkertown Hardware is now. This is the vacant lot next to Tinkertown Hardware, which is just over there. It had housed lots of students for lots of years. At this particular point in time, it was vacant. However, somebody was in the process of moving in, and so there was stuff inside, but there wasn't a person inside. And there may have been smoke alarms that went off. It wasn't detected. I think a police cruiser came by at something like 5 or 5:30 in the morning and saw the house pretty well involved. I mean, there were lots of flames in it when it was noticed. Okay, and so we all got called out, and it was in the end of May. There weren't seniors around, and what struck me on this particular call. And I'm not talking about Station in this case, Alfred Station, just the A.E. Crandall people that were there. We had a fairly sizable crew. I think we had 8 or 9 people, the youngest of whom was at least 50. Okay? That's my concern, all right? We have very dedicated firefighters, and we're all old, and we have very dedicated students, and we're all young, and we have a few very valuable people in between that we just have to keep nurturing and keep retaining and keep, right now, Alfred, A.E. Crandall has 9 students in Firefighter 1. Many of them are by that I mean firefighters in Firefighter 1. Many of them are students, but some of them are not. Some of them are our very own new firefighters. Zach Ham joined us last year, took a course called Scene Support. Scene Support means you're not allowed to go into a burning structure, but you can do everything else. What else is there? You wouldn't believe how much else there is in terms of setting up lights, putting up ladders, dealing with the air packs. There's a lot of stuff. So if you don't want to fight fire, great. join us and take a course in scene support and come and help us do that so that the other folks that are Scout Pack certified can go in and play with the flames get to do that and don't have to do all the stuff outside. I think it's great. Zach is now in the Firefighter 1 class, as is Walter and some other people. So we're starting to rebuild that intermediate core between the 18 to 22-year-olds and the others. The middle people need them badly. Okay. Then, the next year, we had our CDH is what everybody calls it, the Alfred State College Central Dining Hall. My recollection, and somebody was there can correct me if I'm wrong on this, was that ASC was on vacation, I think probably for Easter or something like that, but AU was not. Okay, so in fact, if I remember correctly, our pump operator was a student. All right, this was, in my opinion, a good stop. This is what the interior looked like when it was over. We did some ventilation and the like. The building, the fire was contained to a room and contents. Now, mind you, that's a big room. But every time you save something to room and contents, you're pretty pleased with that kind of result. When the state went to clean this up, it's a dining hall, it's a lot of ductwork and whatever, they found asbestos. And so the cleanup then went from being a rather trivial, would be done in 6 or 7 weeks, to being done in, 6 or 7 months, because there was a whole asbestos removal thing involved. But from the fire suppression point of view, I think that was a win. I was real pleased about the job that was done there, although my contribution was pretty peripheral. We had 4 firefighters put that whole fire out, no problem. 4 firefighters and a chief and a pump operator. Okay. It was really good. When we talk about a good stop, they don't get press. This is what a photograph looks like of a good stop. These are guys putting out they're putting ventilation into the roof. There were other people inside. There was a bathroom. The bathroom had a fixture. The fixture said, "Do not use a bulb greater than 60 watts. The residents, who were students, found a 200-watt bulb sitting around the house. They said, well, this will fit. All right. When we put it out, the damage was limited to the bathroom. And the bathroom is not showing on the outside, so it makes a very bad photograph. Didn't chop a hole in the roof. Removed the aluminum fixture from the top of the roof to vent it. I just thought that was so professional. All right. The volunteer squads get a bad rap because years ago they wouldn't have. They would have just hacked all sorts of things in. But now there's a lot of concern about damage to it. So there's one hole in the roof. Removed this piece, had to put it back when they were done. And, of course, the bathroom needed some repair. The beams holding up the light fixture were charred just about all the way through. This was a real fire. But it was put out professionally, effectively, and no one's heard about it. Our chief, Rich Hoffman, gets very upset when you talk to him about these things because they don't get any press. You never see that. What you see the press for are the dramatic photographs, okay, like the High Street fire that happened also in 2007. Now, that's a much more dramatic photograph. We lost the house. This is what it looks like now, another vacant lot, yes? Okay. We're not going to win them all. This one was fully involved by the time anybody called it in. The owner was not home at the time, and again, when no one's there to hear the smoke alarms, or often if you just think about your own house, you'll have something that could have turned into a fire, but you were right there and prevented it. This past year, Alfred and Alfred Station saved a trailer. Okay, in the fire service, that's unheard of. Trailers are just so combustible. But the woman was at home. She saw the cat knock over the candle. The candle started the fire. The fire went up the curtain. And she knew she had a fire. She called the fire department. They came and they put the fire out and were able to save most of a house trailer. It's the only one in 25 years I've ever seen where we could save a house trailer. I thought it was great. All right. Again, if it's a good save, you're not going to hear about it because we're just doing our job. It's when we lose one that everybody says, "Oh man, that was awful." And you know, this is not much fun to fight. I got to say, when you can go in and clean it up really quickly, that's where the fun is. Okay, some statistics here. Bear in mind that in the country, 72% of the firefighters in the country are volunteers. Okay, so 2/3, 72%, something like that. The numbers here are the number of deaths. Okay, what I want to do is allay the fears of those who say, oh, I would be a firefighter except my significant other thinks I'm going to die. I'm perfectly happy to volunteer to die, but my significant other thinks I'm going to die and I better not do it. Okay, the number of deaths is something like between 90 and 120 a year, with the exception of, and we always make this exception that I'll show you in the next slide, 343 firefighters in New York bought it at the 911 7 years ago today, okay? With the exception of that, usually we get something like 100 a year, 2/3 of them volunteers, 1/3 of them career firefighters. Again, the level of firefighting, the level of professional training, very equivalent between volunteers and careers. It was interesting with the fire scene out in California this year. We had career fire departments being replaced by volunteers that moved up. And people said, wait, these aren't professionals. And everybody said, well, they've got the same training your professionals had. Your professionals are busy. They can't do two things at once. We'll move in a volunteer company to cities that had otherwise professionals. And you probably can't read this, but it's because I don't want to emphasize all these statistics. What I do want to point out is that these are deaths, and exertion and other, what we're really talking about are heart attacks, okay? These are heart attacks more than anything else, and if we look at the distribution of heart attacks, being the purple ones, and age going across the bottom, we find that very few young firefighters that are under 25 have heart attacks, and that's to be expected. If they die because of some other reason. As you get older, the number and or percentage of heart attacks goes up. This is what I want to sort of think about. Responding to or returning from alarms, about 30% of the firefighter fatalities happen there, dominated by the volunteer squads. If you happen to live in the firehouse and you're going down that post, yes, you aren't going to die. Yeah. You get into your vehicle, now you've got a great big truck and all sorts of lights and stuff, and you're in New York City and you can only go 12 miles an hour anyway. It's pretty safe. We have a safety issue which a lot of chiefs are very concerned about, and the whole fire service is concerned about, and that's people driving like idiots. Okay? And firefighters can drive like idiots too, especially if they get that adrenaline rush and they haven't had it beat into them that this is the most, one of the most hazardous things they're going to do. Okay, so we can look at those statistics. It's really interesting to compare different groups. How we count how dead you are is a function of which group is counting it, and what we now have is FEMA counts dead people differently from some of the other organizations. And in getting ready for this, I just really enjoyed all of this because somebody playing with statistics should have a ball. This is the same year, and there were 118 dead according to these statistics, and 95 dead according to the other. And you have to say, ooh, what happened to those 23 people? Are they alive or are they dead? And the answer is that FEMA counts you dead in a line of duty death, which is real important because it has to do with benefits for your family. Not going to do you any good, but benefits for your family, etc. Depends on whether you die within 24 hours of strenuous activity related to something that you otherwise would not have done if it hadn't been the fire service. Okay? It's a way of saying you go home and die from a heart attack. Isn't that a line of duty death? And so we have these issues, and that's where the different numbers come. This is the one I want to point out. There's 23 deaths from, okay, we got wildfire, which we don't worry about, but the top line here is career, the bottom line is volunteer. Career firefighters, I say there's one or three maybe. Yeah, it's three. Then 23 volunteers. Yes? On the fire ground, there's only 12 deaths among volunteers. So the number of volunteers dying going to or from the fire is twice as great as the number of volunteers dying on the fire ground. And of those dying on the fire ground, 46% are from stress overexertion. Yes? I.e., heart attack. There you go again. Heart attack. That's it. Heart attack, heart attack, heart attack. So in New York, we're really concerned about getting to and from the fire ground safely using your seatbelt, yes? And we're really concerned about heart attacks. someone will pay for a fire department physical for everyone in the fire service, and that's one of the perks in becoming a member of the fire department, that Alfred or Hamilton or somebody pays for the physical, which includes an EKG, and you need to be approved to be able to fight as an interior firefighter and go inside and the like. So that's one benefit. The other, of course, which I think is pretty obvious, is if you stay fit, your likelihood of having a heart attack on the fire scene is seriously reduced. Yes? So what I like to think about is, if you're thinking about your risk or your spouse's or significant other's risk in going into the fire, most of those can be controlled. Stay in shape. Know what your limits are on the fire ground, okay? Don't overdo. And don't drive like an idiot. Yes? Okay. Then the likelihood that you're going to die is, at least according to statistics, greatly reduced. All right. Let me just point out, this is the 343 firefighters. Okay, it sticks way up. I want to put that in perspective, because one of the things Bill mentioned when he asked me to do this seminar, he said, it's 911, and maybe you want to think about that, and I do. And I thought about it, and I have talked to a lot of firefighters since I decided I would do this. And my impression is that the public's perception and the firefighters' perception of 343 firefighters buying it in the World Trade Center is really different. New York City has 11,600 firefighters. 343 is there are 33 firefighters for every one that didn't die. If we put that into an Alfred or Alfred Station or a Hamilton perspective, we're really dealing with about 33 active firefighters. We may have more on the books. They don't respond very much. So a fire in Alfred that killed one firefighter would be equivalent in our world to 343 buying it down there. And the other thing is, it's part of the job, okay? If the chiefs have determined that it's safe to go in the building, yes, then I don't know a single firefighter who would even pause. In fact, they'd be fighting for the chance to get in. That's just the way they are. Okay, a quick business about ISO ratings. Insurance companies need to know what the firefighting capability of your community is, and also for your house, how far you are from fire hydrants and the like. One of the ways we do that is we rate them with ISO ratings. They go from 1 to 9. A good rating is a 1. Nobody has that. And I'll show you the distribution. This is the distribution of the country. The 9s are yellows and oranges. There's a few oranges here, and my favorite state. But anyway, we'll go ahead. The greens are well protected, so those are typically 4s or 5s. We look nationally. We see, here are your 9s. Here are 4s and 5s. Alfred right now has an ISO rating of 4. All right? The different fire insurance companies will weigh these things differently. And trust me, I have no idea what the university's insurance policy deals with. But I am personally confident that they need to have that ladder truck, they need to have firefighters, etc. This is where the 4s are. These are 5s. Hamilton also is a 4. The rating gets reviewed every 15 years, and I think we in Alfred are going to be reviewed in 3 or 4 years. What we want to pay attention to is what can be done to maintain a good, meaning a low rating. And they tell you what they rate things by, okay? Handling of fire alarms, that's the dispatch center. We have nothing to do with that. Your county government takes care of that, and in my opinion, it works fine. Okay, everybody's got its complaints, but it works pretty fine. So that's 10% of your rating. The water supply, Jim McNulty, the water supply, the taxes, the government in the village, they take care of it. You saw hydrants get replaced along West University this summer. Hydrants got stretched out further along West University last summer. Every summer, McNulty does some refitting, refurbing. He tests all the hydrants. All of these things are checked by ISO, and they will check on his record. So that's 40%. This is 10%. That's half of your score. Cool. Yeah? Okay. The other half of the score is the fire department. All right, that makes sense. If you're well-funded, here's my problem, okay, if you look at both the Hamilton situation and the Alfred situation, is that our society has moved into somebody else will take care of it and I'll pay for it. Yes? right? And I want to just try and tear you away from that notion, right? You can pay for more pumpers, reserve pumpers, ladders, yes. You can pay for all of these things, and if your chiefs and your fire department are doing their job, and ours are, and Alfred Stations are, and Hamilton's are, I don't know about everybody else, but they typically are, and they're very concerned about having equipment, maintaining the equipment, keeping it up to date, and whatever. Okay, now you've covered, let's see, 26% out of that 50. But you're left with 24%, which is company personnel and training. And what the ISO will do, and you can look at, I just put a summary here, but they will look at how many of your firefighters respond. Okay? They'll look at how far away they have to come from to respond. They actually avoid looking at how fast they respond because they don't want you to drive like an idiot. Yes? Okay? And so they say, you live this far away, we are going to give you so many minutes to get there, and I don't care if you do it in quarter that time, because we're only going to give you those many minutes anyway. All right? They look at your response time from distance perspective. They look at how many are showing up. Okay, how many have physicals in Allegheny County right now? 92% of the active firefighters have physicals, so we would be okay there, yes? They look at those sorts of things, and we've got state fire to worry about too. And they look at your training records. How many people are showing up for training? How much training do you do? Is the training the kind of training that improves the statistics? Okay, we're talking about insurance companies. They are all about statistics. And what they do is they have all of this worked out so that they can say, losses due to fire are reduced by the following stuff, and they put it all together. The bottom paragraph is, they call it divergence, I call it leverage, all right? If you have a great water system but nobody to operate it, you can't do much. If you have a terrific fire department where everybody's super trained but they can't get any water, you can't do much. So what they do is they take the lowest one of all of this. So although it only counts as 24%, if you get gigged here, yes? What will that mean? That will mean that the rating in the community will go up. Everybody's insurance premiums, in theory, will go up. The cost to live here will go up, which will decrease the ability for people to want to live here, which we don't even want to go look at the spiral of things, but that's really, this is really an issue. When it comes up again, I'm sure you'll hear about it in the next few years. Fire departments use this all the time to get pumpers and to get new equipment. They say, hey, if you don't buy this $700,000 pumper, everybody's rates will go up, and there you go. That's going to mean that it's cheaper to buy a $700,000 pumper. I'm using the same argument to say we need more firefighters, more people that are involved to get down and help us. I'm going to put a pitch in for non-traditional help, not scene support, not firefighting. Suppose you're handy with small engines, okay? Each of our trucks has pumps, pump out cellars and the like. Each of our trucks has generators. Most of our trucks have saws, chainsaws and other saws. All those are small engines. When we have 50, 60 people in the department, there's going to be somebody who's got the time and ability to do that, okay? To look at those equipment, all those motors, take them apart. Quartermaster, okay? Someone who's interested in maintaining inventory. How many turnout coats do we have? What sizes do we have? What sizes do we need? Yes? Who has what? Those sorts of things are currently being done by the same folks that wear the funky costumes and run into the buildings. And it would be nice to have more people so that there's less work for everyone to do. These are numbers that come off of the 2006 incident reporting system. I just got them because they're publicly available. But it does show you sort of the kind of activity that we have. The real number of calls that are active fire calls are much smaller than this. Most of those are Chief Furlong's calls, yes? And when that whistle goes off and she checks out all of those false alarms, those are what she's doing, okay? And again, if you want any of these slides, they're down here at that site.